All right. Welcome to this week's episode of Fat, Drunk, and Stupid. I'm Rob with you, as always. And this week, I'm very excited to have two guys I'm a big fan of, Chris and Shaun from the DADNAROK podcast. So thanks, guys, for hanging out. I appreciate it.
Hey,
Yeah,
Rob.
thanks for inviting us. This is awesome. I've been listening
Yeah.
to you for some time. Then you went away, and I was like, oh no. Usually, when podcasts go into hiatus, they never come back.
Yeah, I did. I did a little break there from October till I guess it was recently February or so when I came back. But we had like October, we had like my wife's uncle passed away, and then we just had some other stuff going on, and I just kind of took a break. Then it was the holidays,
Yeah.
and we have she's almost 4, going on 24 most days. But
Yeah.
Yeah.
so we just spent a lot of time with her, that kind of stuff. And I always planned on coming back because I do enjoy it, but I do think it's good to take a break sometimes if you can, kind of recharge. But you
Oh,
guys,
for
man,
sure.
I've been listening to you guys for I know we probably found each other on Twitter last summer or something probably. And we kind of crossed paths a couple times, like we were on Basement Surge with the DC
The fandom.
That's
the
right.
fandom thing. Yeah, well, Batman was there. I couldn't make it. But
Yeah, exactly.
but we were talking before we recorded. You guys have been going through some changes with the show. You've been doing a lot of stuff on YouTube. Can you guys kind of talk about that? Was that like a natural progression, or was this like a goal that you guys set?
It was kind of a natural progression. As actually, we have we're friends with John over at the Basement Surge, and we did one like show with him, and it kind of planted the seed. Like, you know what, this may be the next step.
I think it was
And
that DC show that was the first time you and I were on the video format. And yeah, I think that put the bug in you, especially. You started looking at it hardcore.
yeah, I was like, okay, what can we do? If we're going to do it, we need a good opening. We need a good closing. I need to look into some video editing software. And it just kind of became my thing. Like like the YouTube, like analytics thing. I'm a big like fantasy baseball player.
Mm-hmm.
So I was always kind of already a numbers geek already.
Oh yeah.
I didn't realize the level I am, because when it comes to like the YouTube analytics part of it, I am all over it.
He
I
loves
mean,
it.
I'm trying to figure out how to get us out there, how to, more views, all this. And I mean, we get meager. I mean, I'm happy with like, 100, 200 views of video,
Mm-hmm.
but we had one go. I mean, and it's still climbing. We just started doing, once they put out the new like trailers for movies.
Yeah,
We did one for the new Mortal Kombat.
I saw that. It's like almost like over 1,000 views, I think. Isn't
Yeah,
it?
it's at 1,400 today. And I'm like, oh, that is awesome. So
Yeah, that's
I'm
a big
sitting
deal
back
for us.
Yeah.
and I'm looking like, how can I replicate this? What did I do so right here that I haven't done it right in other places? But yeah, it's been fun.
We were just talking today. I think that was just luck of the draw. Just whatever YouTube, the YouTube gods decide to bestow upon whatever particular video. I don't know if there's much more you can do. Yeah, the algorithm. So
The algorithm.
but yeah, I mean, I kind of put the bug in me too. Like when he mentioned like, hey, let's do some video stuff. Like, let's do a video version of the audio podcast, maybe. Then we can, because I had always planned on maybe doing some like trailer reactions, because that's the kind of stuff that I like to watch on YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
But it's really expanded, and it's taken up a lot of our time. And I think we've reached a point. Chris and I talk about this a lot here recently. We've reached a point where we actually kind of like doing the TV show recaps, the after shows a little bit more than the audio podcast.
Yeah.
Because
Mm-hmm.
the audio podcast, it's all us, and it's like having to think of topics and stuff each week, and I do the editing on the audio side and Audacity afterwards, and there's just a lot more effort and work put into it as opposed to just going live, reacting to a TV show. You kind of put it out there and it's done. So
And
I
we're
don't know.
getting
Chris
a
and
bit of
I
pressure
are
from our wives as well about the time suck it's becoming.
Mm-hmm.
yeah. So
Yeah, I
I don't
always
know.
say that a wife is there. Like when you're too low, she'll pick you up. When you're too high, she'll knock you down a rung or two.
Oh, my wife doesn't even watch or listen to anything we do.
She's
Yeah.
like, "Are you talking to yourself again? What are you doing in there?"
Yeah, you're locking yourself in that back bedroom again. You really.
Yeah, that's cool, man. Because like I said, I've been keeping up with you guys, and I feel like with that Mortal Kombat video, like you said, it was just you guys being yourselves. I mean, and I think that's a big selling point for a lot of people. I think sometimes people maybe have to try to put on a character or something, and really a lot of
Right.
times your natural reaction is what people want. Like, I look for people like you guys. I think we kind of probably in the same, probably close age, probably like a lot of the same stuff. probably have some similar opinions, maybe not completely, but you know, that kind of thing is cool for people who look for, because I like trailer reactions too. But if I see one and it seems like a little overblown, I'm like, you
Right.
know,
Yeah.
you know, I like the way you guys talk about the post episodes and stuff like that too, because like you said, you don't have to sit there and hammer out some kind of topics. You don't have to figure out, oh, what are we going to do? It makes it a little easier, probably a little more fun for you guys. I mean, do you think it would, you guys have been doing this obviously together. I mean, and it's cool that you have different things like, you know, you run the numbers and then, you know, you do the editing. That's kind of cool. I mean, do you think it would work if it was just one of you doing it alone? Do you think it would be what
it'd be overwhelming if one of us tried to
Yeah.
do all of it at one time.
Yeah.
Like for instance, a lot of like interactions on Twitter and social media and everything. I handle a lot of that. I do a lot of that. I go in and out. I try to just share stuff as much as possible because I know the editing portion of the show takes a lot of time. So if we do an hour show, Sean's looking at maybe 2 hours worth of editing
Mm-hmm.
of getting it down to where he feels it's good to be put out. And we always had a goal when we put out our product and our podcast. If we can't listen to it back, who would else would listen to it?
True. Yeah.
So it's that's always kind of been our standard. If we enjoy listening to our show, and I've listened to like almost every one of our shows, I listen when it comes out, just to get used to hearing myself, and
Mm-hmm.
that was a big thing. Hearing yourself, seeing yourself, and I mean that like I said, that's kind of been where we were. And when we decided to jump into the the video stuff, it's like okay, this is a bug that is maybe a bad thing, a bad thing in a good way. I'll put it
Well, I
that
was
way.
thinking about that
Yeah.
because John is like a podcast drug dealer. Like he gets you hooked on this stuff.
He does.
Because I did my first live show with him last summer, and he and I did an episode together. And he's like, "Man, you got to do a live show," you know, because he does like 46 live shows a week.
Yeah, he does a lot.
And the week that I was on there with him, he was actually supposed to be on vacation there, but he did like 9 live
Sounds about
shows.
right.
But I just kind of like you guys, man. I started thinking, I was like, you know, I wonder if I could have like just a video component to the podcast, you
Right.
know, kind of like what we're doing now, and put on YouTube. And I did that with one or two episodes. In my most recent one last week with Ariel, I put that on YouTube, and it's been doing pretty good. I was kind of surprised. I was like, wow, man, this is okay. This is all right, you know. But do you guys with the way it's going with the videos, do you think you're gonna maybe lean more into the YouTube? I mean, not abandon podcasting really, but kind of, you know, see how far you can push that probably.
We've talked here recently about maybe changing the format a little bit, maybe kind of changing up the podcast itself to maybe, because honestly, you know, when we sit down and record the audio podcast and we end up talking and recording and an hour plus worth of content, and then the more that we record, the more I have to spend editing. So if we can make the show itself a little bit more concise and a little bit more kind of structured in a format to where we have, so many minutes about family stuff, so many minutes about pop culture stuff, and then, the dad joke segment. If we can maybe cut down the podcast itself to maybe 20, 30 minutes, that would mean a lot to me as far as editing on the back end.
Right.
So yeah, I think Chris and I, and this is all recent, this is stuff that we've
Yeah.
discussed in the last week, just like how we can continue to kind of evolve the YouTube side of things while still
But
putting the
not a-
audio podcast out,
yeah,
because the
not
audio
abandon the
podcast
base.
is really the heart of like DADNAROK. It's how it
Oh, sure.
started.
Mhm.
It's where we have an outlet to talk about family stuff and week to week stuff. So I don't foresee the audio podcast like disappearing completely, but maybe just to make a little bit more room for some of the other stuff.
Yeah. I mean, that makes sense. I mean,
Yeah.
I will say the name is cool. That's the first thing I noticed when I saw you guys on Twitter.
Awesome.
DADNAROK. I was like, oh, that's awesome. I like these guys. I mean, what was when you guys decided, well, I guess first, how long have you guys been doing it?
We've been doing it this
August 2019, I think.
yeah, so in August it'll be 2 years for the show.
Oh, cool. That's cool. I started mine September 2019, actually. So that's cool.
Oh, see? Yeah, we all got on board before the COVID thing where everybody
Pre-COVID.
started doing podcasts.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
We're
pre-COVID.
pre-COVID.
pre-COVID right here. That's why I tell people. I was like, my life sucked before COVID. I may have started a podcast then. I didn't have to start it in isolation, you know. But so what was kind of the reasons for you guys starting? I know you talk about like the parenting dad stuff, just kind of having an outlet, and then it's evolved a little bit.
Yeah, it was one of those things. Honestly, the way it really started was we go on an annual camping trip, and this year it may actually not happen, unfortunately, or it's going to happen a lot later in the season. And I was like, what can we do? I've been thinking about this, plan, idea. I want to do a podcast, and so I'm not going to do it alone. Sitting back and hearing someone just talk, usually, by
Mhm.
themselves. I tend not to listen to those type podcasts. So I was like, okay. So we were sitting around the fire one night. I was like, hey, dude, how about this? Would you be willing to try this? And he was all for it. I'm like, okay. Now we got to start figuring out how to go forward. We got to figure out a name.
Yeah.
And what we started doing is setting like fake deadlines to make sure that we would actually progress with what we're going to go ahead and
Mhm.
do. And
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'd been listening to podcasts for years and years prior. I mean, even like, the Kevin Smith Smodcast and stuff back in like 2006, 7, episode recaps of Smallville. That's how far back was watching and listening to podcasts. But so when he brought it up, it's something that it's always been kind of a curiosity for me. But as soon as he brought it up, it was like, oh yeah, heck yeah. And now it's actually become, I mean, he and I would go camping, or he and I, we've been friends since we were 10 years old,
yeah,
and
Mhm.
we would go long spans of time without talking to each other because we typically live in different states and stuff. And it may be months, between talking to each other. But the podcast has been a great excuse just to like keep in touch every single
Yeah.
week,
yeah,
pretty much every other day at least, or at least texting.
yeah. We
And
Yeah.
see and talk to each other as much as we did when we like live next door to each other almost now.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So this has been a great excuse kind of to just, hang out with your buddy too.
Yeah, I agree. I mean,
Nice.
when I started mine, that's kind of what my original idea was. And then the COVID stuff came about, and then, you know, then it's like, well, I can't really, it's hard to get, hang out with people currently.
Yeah.
So that's when I started doing some solo episodes, uh, just to kind of, number one, to see if I could do it. And number two, just to see, how it would go really. So, and I mean, I enjoy them both. I think having someone else though, like you said, does help. You guys can set like little deadlines and
Right.
kind of put, maybe push each other. Cause I mean, look, I mean, I've said before, I usually record after my daughter goes to bed.
Yeah.
And then so you guys know by that time you don't really feel like doing a podcast, probably. I mean, sometimes I don't. I'm just like, oh man, I don't really feel, because just maybe you're just tired, worked all day, and then
Sure.
Yeah,
especially working from home. I work from home, and she's here with me a couple days a week. So I'm sitting here working, and she's like swinging off my arm, and I'm like, okay, hang on a second, but do you guys ever run into that when it comes to recording time, like balancing the family stuff and recording?
we have pushed
Yeah.
it back on multiple occasions to like a later, because typically what we were doing is we were recording originally was Sundays. We were like, you know what, Sundays isn't a good day just because we're both sports fans, but then again, Sean was like, you know what, I'm just kind of in a work type of mode now. I'm kind of my
Mhm.
mind isn't there. So we kind of bumped it up to Saturday. So our
Yeah.
record day has kind of been all over the map, honestly.
Yeah.
Sunday night, really, you're just thinking about Monday morning.
Yeah.
When
Dreading
you
it.
got that Monday 9 to 5, it's just not in the right mindset. But
Yeah.
luckily, he and I are fairly flexible. I mean, we've known each other. This isn't our business, so we keep each other on a pretty flexible schedule. So if he's got something going on where he can't make it, if he's got the kids, in tumbling class or whatever we got going on over this way, we can always bump it a day or two. And we try to stay pretty consistent with the release of stuff. I think lately it's kind of, typically we've gotten episodes out on a Tuesday or Wednesday before, but now it's, at some point during the week, we should be able to get an episode out.
Well, we started like my work schedule changed. Like I've actually changed jobs. So I
Yeah.
Yeah.
work my days off for like Tuesdays and Thursdays. But I don't get home. I get off like at 8. I'm home at about 8:30. So we usually didn't start recording until about 8:39 anyway. Like you were saying with
Mhm.
your daughter, we make sure the kids are in bed. So
Right.
the wives can't really give us too much grief because the kids are
Exactly.
in bed.
Yeah.
And then we kind of do our own thing. And
Chris says that he gets a lot of knocks on his door though,
oh, a
before,
lot of
during,
yeah.
and after the show.
Daddy, can I have a hug? Daddy, can you hug me? Tuck me in? Can I say hi to Uncle Sean? All of
Yeah.
those.
Yeah. No, I kind of have the same thing because, one thing I did when I was on my break is I set up a spot out here in the garage where I could record,
Nice.
because that was something I ran into because I was going to my wife's office and using their little conference room, and then I started trying to record at home, and it's kind of iffy because we have a 3-year-old and we have 3 cats and 2 dogs, So
Right.
it's either you hear a kid banging on the door or you hear, you know, a cat or a dog doing something. So
Yeah.
it was important, I think. You know, I think you have to have like some kind of little space to be able to go and do your thing, you know, within reason. But I noticed that, Chris, you had a video with Dakota, right?
Yes.
Recently. How was it? I mean, how was that? How is it important for you to share this kind of stuff with the kids? I mean, you know, especially with the comic book stuff and the movies and things like that, you know, because
Absolutely. I mean,
yeah.
his mom's been reaching out. I mean, there's been a few hiccups in like scheduling
Mhm,
on getting together. Because originally the plan was me going over his house and just kind of talking to him about like podcasting and
mhm.
what kind of things he would need and everything. And it just happened that it was better off for him to come to me. And he brought his mic with him and everything. I was like, you know what? I was showing him everything. I was like, you know what? Why show? Let's just let's do one. And I
Mhm.
went and recorded it. And rather than doing it live, I just went ahead and did. And the funny thing was, there's a little backstory. We did one, and I didn't realize my mic was flashing at me saying it was muted. I'm like, oh, so you're a rookie mistake. So I had to go ahead and
Rookie
we stopped the
mistake.
video. We redid it, and it actually worked out a little better for him because he was a little more comfortable the second time around in front of the
Sure.
camera. But yeah, I mean, it was between him and showing him and just kind of giving him that little nudge. Like we were just doing our most recent after show for Falcon Winter Soldier,
Mhm.
and he's blowing up the chat, you know, saying it's him, and he's working on his video, and you can feel the excitement in what he's doing.
Yeah, our kids are still fairly young enough to where if they talk about their dad's podcasting or being on YouTube, they're pretty excited about it. I'm
Yeah.
sure they'll reach a point, 10, 11, 12, where they won't think it's as cool.
Well,
They'll be like, oh God, our dads are so
They're
visible
like,
on the internet.
oh, there's our dad
yeah.
talking about
Well,
some guy in tights again. Jeez.
well, there's Zach. There's my son that he wants to do gaming. So I went ahead there and I
Yeah.
got like Streamlabs. He's got
Mhm,
OBS on this computer that I'm working on now, and it's really not prepared for that type of power.
mhm.
So he's doing it by his own. He hasn't had one for a little while. I need to like upgrade the video card so he can actually do it a little smoother.
Yeah.
But he would stream on there and he's playing and he's having a good old time. And so he has the bug, but he's been a big YouTube gamer, watching games. So it's just for him, like, dude, I hear you watching or playing with your friends, and the level of excitement you have and yelling at your iPad and everything isn't
Yeah.
translating to what you're doing.
Yeah.
You got to be back here and you got to have that same excitement, or they're not going to be interested in watching you.
Yeah, that's true. It's crazy to believe, man, what a huge business that is. People playing
Yeah.
video games and people watch, because like when I was a kid, well, probably you guys too, watching someone else play was torture because
Yeah.
I wanted to play. Because usually maybe you had one
Right.
controller or you had the crappy little brother controller that didn't work very well. So it's like it's
You,
crazy. It's been such a big thing. But I think just like podcasting, you get into it and you're like, oh wait, I can do this. You know, it's
right.
accessible. YouTube is there. You know, there's a lot of free tools to use that you can create whatever you want. I mean, which I think is really nice.
Yeah, it's kind of fascinating, the whole watching people play video. I mean, Twitch was pretty much a whole phenomenon that came up where that was its sole purpose,
Yeah.
Mhm.
was to watch people stream themselves playing video games. I never, you're right. As when I was a kid and me and Chris were playing, Sonic the Hedgehog or whatever, we would take turns or playing Resident Evil. And, it was fun to just kind of, play and also, but you'd also want to kind of get in there and play yourself. But I don't know what it was. I think a few years back, maybe it was with Resident Evil 7. I can watch horror games, but I have a tough time playing like horror games.
Mhm.
And Resident Evil 7 looked really scary to me, and I didn't play it. Like I wanted to know the story and I wanted to watch it, but I
Yeah.
didn't want to play it. So that's when I started like watching people on YouTube, and I've been doing it ever since. So like when these big story type games come out, like I don't know, stuff like Red Dead Redemption or the Spider-Man game, like those are ones that I would watch a little bit and then get so sucked into the story where I was like, I have to pick this up and play it for myself now.
I say I
Mhm.
don't have the time to do that. I don't even own a console anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We have a Switch, which is my son's, and I would sit back and I've only watched one. Like, I have an easier time finding maybe a 30-minute window of someone that's putting together episodes while they're playing the game
Mhm.
than sitting down and playing it and look up at the clock and realize, oh, 2.5 hours passed. I need to wake up at 4.
Right.
I just sleep is like it sounds old, but sleep is so like important now.
Hey man,
You
I'm with
are
you.
old.
I'm with you because I you know, there's a couple times where like I'll stay up with a couple buddies and we'll play Xbox or something. And I'll stay up like 1 a.m. or something like that. Then I get up the next morning and I'm just like, oh, why did I do
Yeah, you
that?
feel it.
Yeah.
I was like, I can't do that anymore. It's terrible. But you know, it is fun. I mean, I did a blog about if I'm too old to play video games a couple weeks ago, but it was like an open kind of because you're thinking like I'm like, what am I? Because a lot of times I'll my wife and I had this conversation and I was like, oh yeah, I'm thinking about playing some Xbox tonight. And she was like, oh, well, I'll go in the bedroom so you can play your game. And I'm like, that sounds a little weird for an adult man to say that, you know, to say, you go in the bedroom, I'll stay in here, you know, but it's just kind of a funny thing. You know, I think if you enjoy it, you should be able to just do it. And, you know, but I certainly don't play as much as I used to. I mean,
Yeah.
I
once,
think there's a balance. Like I don't think you're ever too old to do anything, honestly.
yeah,
But if you figure out like a a sweet spot, I think it's that's probably the best thing.
yeah,
I mean,
definitely.
we're all, guys, I assume, Rob, you may be somebody in your late 30s heading into your 40s, maybe.
This year,
Um, oh, well, congrats. Yeah, us too. 39, I think me and Chris are both turning, but I think for the young, like my sister and her fiance or husband, like they're only 5 years younger than me, but like he would is a quote unquote gamer or whatever. I
Mhm,
feel like the generation younger than us, it's more of a thing. Like maybe
mhm.
they just grew up with games more often or something, and now it's just like almost the standard where the guy can just sit and play his console for hours, and
Well,
the
they've seen
girlfriend's
more
like,
things like the competitive side. Like they're
yeah,
seeing
yeah,
these colleges actually get competitive, gaming teams together. So they're seeing that happened really after us. So they're kind of in
right,
that wave where people are actually making money off these, say on YouTube or on Twitch. And
Mhm.
I mean, they see it happening, but it's just as hard as, becoming a professional athlete,
Yeah.
making money off playing games.
I think too, like, I mean, to your point, when we were coming along back in our day, I mean, playing a video game was like a time waster, basically. It was seemed
right.
like you know, like just something that you did. And 'cause, I mean, I know a lot of people like buddies of mine from high school. I mean, by the time they got through college, I don't think they ever had a console or anything again. Maybe they played some PC games later
Mm.
on, you know, but I guess it's just kind of where you are, you know, and what you choose to do. But yeah, I did play Red Dead. That's probably one of my favorite. Red Dead 2 is incredible game. I love that game.
Yeah,
Um, I harp,
Arthur.
I I harp to people about that game all the time about like, man, just get it. It's great. You know, trust me.
I played through it, and I tried the online component like maybe one time. I just can't do online games. Like
No, neither can I.
I have to
Nah,
play a game like you're watching just a long movie. It's got to be have a beginning, middle, and end. And after the end, I need to be able to put the controller down and be like, "Oh, that was good."
How about the
I
open
can't
world
play these games
concepts?
over and over again.
I think when you get older, I think that's part of getting older, maybe because
Yeah,
I used to play I used to get all the Call of Duties when they came out, like, you know, 10, 12 years ago, however long that was. And I haven't played one, I don't know how long. I think I did get Modern Warfare like 2 or 3 years ago because I knew a bunch of other guys that got it at work. I was like, I can't do this. It's it's like this repetitiveness over and over and over again of the multiplayer stuff.
yeah.
I was just like, man, you know, the campaign was good, but you know, I
Or you
guess
hop on with some 12-year-old that's just like killing you
Oh,
mercilessly,
I
and
can't do online. No,
I know,
with that
you
game,
just get
I'm not
murdered.
a first person shooter. I just can't do
Just
it.
get yeah, you just pretty much die immediately over and over and over again. So, you know, but yeah, I mean, it's one of those things. But you know, not only video games, but you guys, like you said, you've been doing you guys covered WandaVision,
yeah.
doing Falcon and Winter Soldier. It's kind of neat. I mean, the Marvel stuff. I mean, Do you guys like the transitions into the TV series? You think that's a good thing for them?
I think it's a good building blocks. I mean, I think that's what it's really meant to be. And as long as it builds into the movies, like they say. But there's also a very important part where the Kevin Feige came out and said that if you don't watch the TV shows, you still won't be lost within the movies.
Mhm.
So we may benefit from watching the TV shows on like Easter eggs and things that we're going to catch backstory on,
Sure.
but they'll give you enough of that backstory to say satisfy somebody that just enjoys going to the theater and watching them.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, so far so good. I think WandaVision's been good so far. We're
Yeah.
2 episodes in the Falcon Winter Soldier. They were both good. I think they're a lot higher quality than say like the Agents of Shield stuff that was on ABC.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's in CW quality.
Yeah, this stuff is like, I mean, it's long form, but basically it's stuff that you would see in the theater. I mean, the effects are really good. The story's been really good. So yeah, we're fans so far. And we did
Nice.
Mandalorian too, and that was out in
Oh,
November.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So Chris and I are huge Star Wars nerds, so pretty much anything Star Wars
Oh,
we'll
you get
probably
us on
review.
Star Wars. It's a bad. We did a podcast and we were like doing the villains.
Yeah.
And once we start talking Star Wars, definitely with me, because I'm such a lore, books, cartoons. I'm so far outside of the movies. I get going, and Shaun, he tries his best to pull me back,
Like, no,
and
Yeah.
he struggles with it.
I
Yeah.
gotta rein him in. And it's like I used to be the Star Wars. Like I was the one when we were 16. I had the paperback novels lined up on my wall, and I had the Phantom Menace action figures hanging up. I was the big nerd. And then somewhere along the way, I think he watched Clone Wars with his boy.
Hmm.
Mhm.
And now he's an Uber fan where he's the one getting the audiobooks of all the new novels coming out. And he's like, who's a better villain, Thrawn or Maul, or all these like characters that the general public doesn't know. And I don't know. It's all good stuff. It's fun. Hey, it was a treat for me. I
Yeah.
didn't think, when we were kids, I didn't think we'd be having long form Star Wars discussions. We were in our 30s.
Right. At this point, really. I mean, yeah, I mean, the Star Wars stuff is cool because I mean, you start, you know, they're able to build out these other, beyond like the Skywalker stuff. I mean, they're able to
Yeah.
build out
Yeah.
these other characters, which I think is cool because I think that personally, I think that's where the movies kind of failed
Yeah.
is they didn't do enough to make you care about these other people,
Right.
and whereas the Mandalorian is the way it's structured, it's like an episodic Western, you care
Right.
about you care about the Mandalorian. Of course, everybody loves Baby Yoda, and
Yeah.
and each character. I mean, and maybe that's a benefit of a series, but I felt with the new Star Wars trilogy, I think they focused more on the wrong stuff. They focused more on the action,
Right.
of it. And to me, that's never really been what Star Wars was about. It
Yeah.
was more about like the family, a family story, good characters. I mean, you know,
Yeah, I think you're right. That's the same way I feel. I had a tough time with these new sequel movies because I feel like Return of the Jedi was such a satisfying ending of the Skywalker saga. And when he did the prequels, it was like, okay, well, we get to see his father becoming Darth Vader, so it made
right.
sense. But the new movies just seemed like such a tacked on story. It's just kind of so unnecessary. But stuff with the Mandalorian, even though it's kind of, outside the Skywalker saga, it's a different part of the galaxy. I think one of the strengths of putting stuff in the Star Wars galaxy is that you can tell all kinds of different stories, like the criminal underworld stories, the imperial hierarchy stories, like you said, like the space western stories. I
Yeah.
mean,
Mhm.
Mandalorian is a straight up gunslinger western show that I love because
Yeah.
I love westerns as a genre anyway.
Yeah, me too.
So I mean, to see that stuff, you could have Star Wars horror themed stuff, like horror in space with different kind of monsters or whatever they can think of. Like you can put anything in the Star Wars galaxy and just kind of use that as a template or a backdrop. And I think Disney, now that they've gone past episode 7, 8, 9, they can really kind of move forward and explore with some of that stuff.
The High Republic stuff right now, the new stuff that they just put out
Mhm.
is phenomenal. You got to get past a few things. You got to get past when you think, uh, Jedi. You can't think Luke and all them. Okay, you got to realize, okay, this is way before them. They're all there. Yoda's there. He's a name that's brought up a few times, but he's like 200, 300 years younger.
Mhm.
He's
But
only
it's
middle-aged Yoda.
yeah. So you're dealing with that, and you're dealing with like the bad guys are like the Nihil, who are
Mhm.
more like pirates that have the ability to go through hyperspace without actually needing a computer.
See, we done
And,
did it. We done
and
did it. We got to pull Chris back.
Here we go.
but I mean that's just an example. I mean they're more of that Western feel.
I think it's cool, man, because I think uh, one issue I think that's reoccurring with a lot of movies, especially comic book movies, and this is something that I didn't really care for, like in Batman versus Superman and some of these others, that you have all this stuff to pull from, like just like Star Wars, they have all this stuff,
Yeah.
and it's like, why would you not use some of that? I mean, you have all this, I mean, you have, like with Batman, you have, since what 1940 or whenever he came out, you have they always pull like this one little thing out, and then they try to, like you said with the Star Wars movies, they try to twist these movies that were already existed to
Right.
kind of fit this weird thing they wanted to tell, which I thought, I was like, oh God,
Yeah.
he's
I'm
now.
on the mindset with the Star Wars movies, just like with say the prequels.
Mhm.
We got to give these movies. We're too close to them.
Yeah.
They're way too fresh in our mind. I feel like we got to give them a good 10, maybe even 15 years to bake, and then us revisit them and actually may appreciate them more. Like I really enjoy the prequels. I hated the prequels when they first came out, but that was really my first introduction to new Star Wars. Like we knew
Mhm.
episode 4, 5, and 6.
Mhm.
But 1, 2, and 3, I'm kind of like, I was so let down originally about episode 3. Was it the Return of the Sith? I think it is.
Yeah. Revenge of the Sith.
Revenge of the
Revenge of the
Sith.
Sith. Thank you.
Yeah.
And I was so disappointed about it, but I left them alone. I didn't revisit them. I just let them be there.
Yeah.
And then my son found Clone Wars on Netflix, and we blasted through that series. There's a lot of episodes in that series.
Mhm.
I think we did it in a month, actually.
Yeah.
And then I was like, you know what? This was a good starting point for him because now he knows these characters.
Mhm.
Now we can go to episode 1 and watch it where it's still flashy. But when
Yeah.
we got to episode 4, he lost interest because I feel like it's like almost a whole different type of storytelling.
Yeah, it is.
And
It's
it's
a
not
big
as
change.
fast. It's not, not in your face. And he watched them. And I mean, we've seen the new ones,
Mhm.
but yeah, I think we're too close and we got to let it kind of sit and be its own thing for a while.
Yeah, I will say the Darth Vader comics are really good. If anybody has
Yes.
never read those are awesome. I love those. I like it with the comics really, because I think people didn't really get a lot of Darth Vader to me, in anything. And I hopefully with the Obi-Wan series coming out, we'll see a lot more of that, because I mean, Darth Vader was like the baddest dude in the whole galaxy. And
Right.
like in the comic books, man, and I know some of the paperbacks, he's like written really well. It really kind of display his power. Like the end of Rogue One, I thought that was great. Some people didn't
Yeah.
like that. I thought that was perfect because I'm like, people, who haven't read, like the people who just watch the movies, you don't get all this really cool backfill of these characters where you actually, invest in them, and the Mandalorian, like, really, I mean, there's a lot of Clone Wars in that, and a lot of
Yes.
references too. And I know some people were like, oh, I got to go watch Clone Wars now because this is really cool, so
Yeah.
I think it's a good direction for them. I mean, to be able to, they have a whole slate of stuff coming up. So,
They
we'll
do.
kind of see what happens. But flipping the page a little bit to DC, did you guys? Yeah, I know. Look, that's my reaction. Nobody is more. Well, I won't say nobody, but I'm so bothered by the DC situation, almost to the point that it bothers me so much.
Now,
Does it
see,
make any sense?
Yeah.
I went through a point where like I completely dismissed DC. Like I didn't care to see the movies. I didn't care about any of it. I knew just it wasn't interchangeable. Like Marvel locked me up. Just the way they did it. And I didn't feel like DC was doing it. And then the lockdown happened. I didn't see Wonder Woman, the first one. So like, you know what? I'm gonna go ahead and watch it, knowing Christmas, the next one's coming out.
Mhm.
And really, what that just did is it snowballed. It was a snowball effect for me because I watched that. I watched Wonder Woman '84, which was hot garbage, but I mean that's a one other thing. Batman versus
Yeah.
Super. I seen Batman versus Superman, but that one let me down because I didn't realize it was going to be like the dawn of justice when they were first kind of promoting it. I thought it was just going to be those two. I wasn't expecting Wonder Woman to come in, and them try to do their Marvel thing, essentially try to copy what Marvel was doing.
Mhm.
Yeah. For me, it was it's kind of tough. I almost wonder if these DC movies would have had more success over the last decade if Marvel wasn't having their huge success. Because I mean, you can't not compare the two properties just by what they are. So
Yeah.
it's like Marvel was firing on all cylinders since 2008, pretty much, with the surprise of Iron Man. And each and every one, even a bad Marvel movie, is still pretty good. I mean, like
Yeah.
Ant-Man wasn't like their best, thing, but it's enjoyable. It's fun. It's Ant-Man. It's Paul Rudd. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So like DC had a lot. I mean, that's stiff competition, man. So
Mm.
I'm wondering if in a different world and a different dimension, if we lived in and only
The
saw
other
these DC
multiverse.
movies, yeah, in the
I
multiverse, if
yeah,
these DC movies wouldn't have had a better reception.
I agree. I think the problem, I mean, I've said, like you said, there's some really good Marvel movies and there's some not so good. Thor Dark World for me.
Yeah, I was
Oh
gonna
yeah, it
say
was
the
bad.
second Thor.
I
Yeah,
never finished it. I read boxed it. I fell asleep like 4 times and I took it
Yeah,
back.
and then they come back with Ragnarok, which was
and
hugely
Ragnarok was
enjoyable.
Right.
awesome. Yeah,
But it was a different tone change. They
Yeah,
did a great job with that. I
yeah. When
really enjoyed.
what TD took over
Yeah,
on that one. Yeah,
yeah.
it was a great movie because I think Marvel, whether you love them or hate them, them being able to make all these movies and tell this huge story over all these over like 10 or 12 years. I mean, that's impossible. I
Right.
mean,
but they
that's
were able to get an emotional response out of people
Mhm.
at the crescendo of that story. When at the end of Endgame, when that whole battle was taking place, I mean, they got a pop out of everybody.
When I watched Endgame and that final battle, I felt a way in the movie theater that I'd never felt watching any other movie before.
Yeah.
It was like I just watched the crescendo of like maybe a 10-season television show that I really loved and was invested in. I saw all the characters that I'd grown to know and love
Mhm.
over the course of a decade come together and fight in unison against this big baddie, who, I mean, and you can't, you know, Josh Brolin and what they did with just the character of Thanos and how he won in the previous movie,
Mhm.
and just like they made you feel those feelings, man. They did it right.
Yeah, and then I Love You 3000 with having
All that
kids
stuff.
themselves, and
Oh
Yeah.
man,
when I
that gets
seen
you.
that, I was like, anything that deals with kids now,
Yeah,
definitely young kids,
done.
it hits me like right in the feelings. I'm like,
Yeah.
oh
Oh yeah,
man,
it's a shortcut. Yeah.
Did you guys see it in the theater then in game? I
oh
assume.
yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah.
You guys
I
can
told
get
my boss I had a doctor's appointment and I saw like an 8 a.m. showing.
there you go.
I'm gonna be late to work. I gotta go to the doctor, and I literally was sitting in the seat in the theater at like 8:45 in the morning just to catch it.
You show up at work with like tears streaming down your face with the
I
Iron Man
was.
t-shirt on.
I was like, oh God, now I gotta work the rest of the day. Oh, this sucks.
How's the doctor? It was terrible.
It
I
was a
actually
colonoscopy.
I was gonna go see it just because, I feel like, look, I've been along on this ride, and want to see it through. It came out the night it came out. We didn't go. The next day, where I used to work has a cafeteria. 2 guys behind me
Oh no.
completely blow through the whole ending, standing
Oh
right behind me.
no.
Yeah, they all went to see. They went and saw it together as a group, and they're right behind me. They're like, "Man, I can't believe they did that." Tony, blah blah blah. And I was like,
That sucks.
"Are you serious, man?" You know. So
I hate
anyway,
that.
yeah, that sucks. And so,
You
yeah,
got to be so conscious of that these days. It's like
it
if
got
you're
ruined
not
for
the
me. But
first to like, you really have to like plug your ears and stay off social media. And
Yeah.
I mean, but it wasn't even social media for you. It's just people like behind you just blabbing off at their
well,
mouth.
when you work in IT, you got to deal with a bunch of nerds. So
Yeah.
that's that's the problem. Like one guy was talking about watching Captain Marvel 3 times and crying and all this kind of stuff, and I was like, "Oh God, I got to get out of here." But yeah, it happened to my wife with Game of Thrones. With the did you guys watch Game of Thrones?
Yes.
Yes.
See, I don't want to spoil anything for anybody who hasn't.
Right.
But
I think we're getting to a limit of
the statute of
here.
limitations.
Yeah, I think you're good.
Statute of limitations.
Anyway, the whole Jon Snow thing, when
Right.
he's dead, so my wife and I hadn't watched it, and someone on her Facebook was like, "Oh my God, they killed Jon Snow," and then she just was like pissed.
Oh yeah.
I said, "You can't get on Facebook when stuff like this is going on because somebody's going to talk about it." Just like Force Awakens, people were spoiling that because it was, it started in overseas. They showed it overseas first, and people were putting the whole movie on social media on everywhere. I said, yeah, you can't do that, but yeah, the DC thing, I think, like you were saying, Marvel hit it on, they had the action adventure movie down to a science,
Yeah.
a lot, and most of those movies are all, they're marketed perfectly. They're put together a certain way, and they're made to be a continuation of each other, which is cool, not just like not such a very final thing. And then DC, of course, the problem with DC is that they've had so many misses when it comes to movies. I mean, you look at the Batman movies, I mean, they've all been a mess for the most part, going back to like Batman Forever and Batman and Robin and all that kind of stuff.
Well, they
Right.
hold a very special spot in my heart. Even
Which
as
one?
campy as they are, of all those early Batmans, the really
Yeah.
flashy
All the
ones, the one
90s
with
ones.
the Riddler and Two-Face.
They do too. I know people crap on them, but those are very, like, I remember going to see the 89 Batman movie in the movie theater with my mom,
Yeah.
and I had the Batman t-shirt and the hat,
That's
and
all
that
we
was,
had as kids, man.
that's what I'm
Just
saying,
the
man.
Batman franchise. And then we got Blade in 98.
Yeah.
But I mean, for the majority of the 90s, as far as superhero movies, that was it.
And then it was like
Batman.
X-Men was in 2000 or 2001.
2000, yeah.
But yeah, I mean, as a kid though, the only time I saw Batman was either the old Adam West one they would show on the Family Channel, the
Right.
reruns of it, or if I was watching Scooby-Doo and Batman and Robin did a cameo.
Yes.
Remember that? They'd be on there, and Super Friends, of course, but that was the only, and of course that was like the pre Dark Knight Returns, the blue-gray smiling detective Batman,
Right.
because Dark Knight Returns came out and kind of changed everything, as far as the way Batman was made. But
yeah,
the Christopher Nolan trilogy I thought was great. I mean,
Yes.
obviously, the Dark Knight Rises I think was kind of a little iffy at spots.
That's always the caveat. I think the third installment with a lot of trilogies, like even like with the Back to the Future trilogy, with like a lot of them where that third one's like, third one's okay.
I
do like Batman Begins. I loved the Dark Knight, but yeah, for me, the Dark Knight Rises, I actually didn't enjoy it.
Yeah. And I know they there's a I can't remember the name of it now. There's a comic book story with where Gotham is cut off by an earthquake. I don't remember the name of
No Man's Land.
No Man's Land.
Yes.
So I recognize that. I was like, okay, they're doing No Man's Land, right? They're doing a variation of No Man's Land.
And a little bit of Nightfall, where Batman's back was broken by Bane.
Yeah.
So I saw what they were going for, and I appreciate it because those were good pools as far as stories. Because like you said, I mean, they have 70 plus years of good storytelling that they can pull from. But for me, I don't know. It's just like, I didn't really care for Anne Hathaway's Catwoman. I didn't really care that Batman decided to not be Batman for 8 years. Like, I just, that's so out of the realm of what his character is. Like, he is the guy who does the never-ending mission, like knowing that it's a never-ending battle and he's never going to win it, but he does it anyway. He goes out and puts himself through that hell every night because that's what he swore to do. He swore that no other little kid would grow up without their parents and to lose their parents to crime just the way he did. Like, that's why he goes out there every night. For Christian Bale Batman, and to just kind of walk away from it because it's like whatever.
Yeah,
I was kind of out from it from the get-go.
Yeah, I think what they were doing there, like to have him come back, that there's a piece of the Dark Knight Returns there.
Yeah,
where
I was going to say, I was going to go for the Dark Knight Returns.
Yeah, they did the shot with the two cops in the car, and he's like, and they see Batman, and he's like, "You're in for a show, kid." So I was like, "Oh, okay, they're going to do a piece of that." And like, yeah, I wasn't crazy about that, but I mean, the Dark Knight movie itself, though, I mean, that stands. I mean, that's like a crime noir film.
Oh yeah,
with a guy in a bat suit. And and Joker, really.
Even today, even after all the superhero movies that have come out since, it's still held up as like, you compare it to the Dark Knight. Even this new one with Matt Reeves, the Batman, that looks incredible. I know they're kind of basing it with on the Long Halloween, and they're going to have a dark Riddler, which I can't wait to see. But even that, it's going to be held up against the Dark Knight as far as like, is it as good as Heath Ledger's performance?
Yeah, Heath Ledger's Joker is always going to be the bar to reach.
Yeah. And nobody knew that when he was cast. I remember the ire on the internet, because internet fandom was still pretty new back then. And I remember just the message boards and people just flaming Heath Ledger, like, oh, the guy from The Knight's Tale is going to be, the Joker. This is going to suck.
How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days. I think he was in that
Yeah,
too.
little did they know.
I was telling somebody, I was a guy, some of the guys at work who are a lot younger than us, of course, don't remember this stuff going down. I said, but in Tim Burton's Batman, when they cast Michael Keaton, people were pissed.
They
Because
were. Oh, Mr. Mom is going to
Mr.
be
Mom,
Batman.
yeah, Mr. Mom, he had just done Beetlejuice.
Right.
Because people wanted, like, Stallone, Schwarzenegger, Clint Eastwood, people,
Yeah.
all these folks like that. And plus he's short, relatively. I think he's like, I think he's like, I know he wore like a lifts on his shoes because Kim Basinger's like 5'11" or something like that, 5'9". But I said, there was no internet. So people were writing letters to Warner Brothers and calling them on the phone, complaining about it. I was like, yeah, people still made a big deal then. They didn't have social media. Excuse me, but they did it. But with the Justice League, which is a big groan from everybody, I don't know how you guys feel about it, but I think at the very least, doing the Snyder Cut, I think, is a good thing, because at least he gets a chance to get his movie out there.
Yes.
He had some circumstances beyond his control that he lost his daughter and he couldn't finish the movie.
Right.
But so the movement for the Snyder Cut is good, I think, although I think the movie itself is flawed.
I think the Snyder, I mean, not to interrupt, but I think
No, go ahead.
the Snyder Cut idea, the more I think I watched it, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it more than I enjoyed the first one. But I think they are walking a very dangerous line, because the worst thing that you can do, speaking as a fan of like sports and of anything, is give the fans too much say in anything.
That's true.
Because if you do that, all of a sudden they're going to expect, anytime that they don't like something, they're going to speak up, and they think that whoever's pulling the strings is going to listen to Joe Blow in his basement saying, "Oh, I don't want so and so playing this role, or this, this director or something."
Yeah.
So I mean, I think they're already saying. I mean, I've seen reports that that they're trying to reinstate the whole Snyder universe, DCEU, and they're bombing the actual reviews of Godzilla Kong.
Of course.
They're putting bad ones in there, giving it a 1 star. It hasn't even come out yet.
Which is like, how is that even? That's not even related. That's like
and
not
they're
bombing
hashtagging it.
Yeah.
People are wacky, man. It's like I saw people the other day calling for the air cut of Suicide Squad, and it's like, come on, that movie's terrible. I don't know how you guys feel about it. I hated that movie.
I hated it too. I think it does set a weird precedent. I think this was a completely unique circumstance that I don't know. It was kind of a perfect storm, because there was just so much movie that Zack Snyder had shot. He had done 2 movies already leading up to this, basically this final movie of this trilogy that he had created. And just with the circumstances, how he just had to step out because of the family issues, and the fact that they held so firm to that release date. They're like, okay, Zack Snyder, you're out. Joss Whedon, you're in, but we're still doing this date. They didn't give Joss Whedon a ton of money to complete it, and it was just it was released as this kind of very disjointed. I mean, you could feel it, even like average general audience moviegoers who typically don't critique, movies, even they were saying like it was just kind of felt like the tones were off, like it was all over the place. Sometimes it was really dark, sometimes it was kind of goofy, which is just not what you wanted for the Justice League. It's like, as far as DC, Warner Brothers, big properties, I mean, this is it. As far as this is your Avengers, or at least it should be. It should be as big, if not bigger, than the Avengers, because it's the damn Justice League. It's Super Friends. It's Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman, and the rest.
They hit the actors right on the head, though. I mean, the actors that they have playing those roles are fantastic at those roles. I was worried about Ben Affleck as Batman. I'll be the first to say it, but seeing him in that role, I enjoy it. And then Jason Momoa as Aquaman, that's my favorite DC movie.
I'll never see Aquaman other than a Jason Momoa type, an Islander, just big, like, long hair and stuff. I'll never see him as the typical blonde, blue-eyed Arthur Curry again.
No.
That's what they were able to do.
When I saw they were doing Aquaman, I was like, but I watched it and I was like, man, this is a good movie. This is, James Wan made the movie. And of course, he's done a bunch of horror movies before that.
Conjuring series, I think.
So you get some horror elements in there, which I think was kind of cool, like the night stuff with in the water and with the way you use the lights and things like that. And I said, this is really good. I like, I like Jason Momoa. It was good. It was good paced. It was a good movie, and
right.
the first Wonder Woman movie I thought was pretty good. The last like 20 minutes, I wasn't super crazy about, but it's those two, like the first Wonder Woman and Wonder Woman 84 is like two totally different. It's like night and day.
They are.
uh, and I don't know why. I don't know. I'm not sure why. I know that the I can't remember her name, Patty, the director.
Patty Jenkins.
Patty Jenkins. She directed the first one, but she didn't write it. But she wrote the second one, I guess. So maybe there's a big difference there. But it had some elements of, like, I know people compared it to like the Richard Donner Superman, like some of those little moments that are kind of cute and things like that. But
Yeah,
it was just kind of weird. It was so all over the place. And
yeah.
one thing that I don't know if you guys ever noticed this, but for some reason, superhero movies in the sequel, they always add a bunch of villains for some reason. The first movies are good because there's one villain and there's one thing to focus on.
Right.
And then it's like, oh, second movie, let's load them up, and I always think that I think it drags it down, because like Cheetah is like her main villain, but she was pretty irrelevant in the whole movie, which is kind of wacky.
It was a mess. You're right, but that's something that's been going on since the Batman, even the Superman movies, because he fought Lex in the first Superman movie, and then Superman 2, who was fighting Zod and Zod's crew there. So that was like 3 villains. But then Batman, Keaton, Nicholson, that first Batman, that was it. That was just like the poster was just the bat symbol.
Yeah.
Keaton, Nicholson.
Yeah.
And that's what you saw. And then by the time Batman and Robin rolled around, they had Bane, they had Poison Ivy, they had Mr. Freeze, they had, like, how many can we cram in there?
Oh, those movies are so wacky. I love the story about Michael Keaton, because they asked him to come back for the third movie, and they were gonna do like Batman Year One, I think.
Yeah.
But it was gonna be Joel Schumacher, and they had all these ideas. Keaton's like, nah, I'm good. And they're like, well, here's a bunch of more money. And he's like, nah, I'm good. Because he's talked about it. He's like, it was a ton of money, but I just didn't really, because they talked about doing a lot of the Year One stuff, kind of like almost like a Batman Begins kind of thing, and
right,
that kind of stuff. So, but I thought it was cool that he also, when I read that when he was asked by Tim Burton to do the Batman movie, the first one, they met for lunch, and Keaton had never read any comic books. And Tim Burton gave him a copy of Dark Knight Returns. And he's like, this is what I want to make. So go read this comic book and you say yes or no. And he's like, okay.
Right.
So he's like, I went home and read it. And I said, okay, sure. Let's, why not? Let's
do it. Which I can't believe that. It was the biggest movie he ever was a part of. I mean, I can't think of a bigger franchise. The only, like, a distant second would be Beetlejuice, but maybe the Dream Team. I don't know. Shoot.
I think
try to think of Michael Keaton movies.
I don't know. I think that that's one of the benefits of having a really good actor like Ben Affleck, because I think a big part of these superhero movies where you have alter egos is like the guys, how well they pull off Bruce Wayne. And I always felt Michael Keaton was a really great Bruce Wayne. Yeah. When he's Bruce Wayne, like, you would never guess he's Batman, because he's kind of got that like kind of awkward kind of humor, he's kind of stuff going on. And I felt like I like Henry Cavill, but I think they missed the Clark Kent of his Superman.
Oh, yeah. They haven't done like, there's so little Clark Kent in, like, I mean, there's the Smallville Mon Pa Kent kind of stuff, but him being like working at the Daily Planet and just being having those two sides of them, just kind of like purposely not being Superman when he has the glasses on. That is something that I've missed in this new iteration. But yeah, you're right. But that being said, like, when he first came on the scene, I was like, when you comparing him to Christopher Reeve, who was, for our entire youth was Superman. So, but watching Henry Cavill and seeing him and learning how much of a nerd he is, and just watching The Witcher and just being a fan of,
he's The Witcher. He's not Superman so much. I'm not a Superman guy. I'm more of a Superman guy now that I've watched like the newest Justice League, the Snyder Cut. But when I see him with the long hair, walking with this doofy looking dude next to him, and he's hunting down monsters.
I love that show. I remember, that came out back around, was the last Christmas before last, I think, or something like that.
I think so, time. Yeah.
And it was because The Mandalorian came out around that same time too. And we watched The Mandalorian and The Witcher, like in the same 2-3 week period.
Yeah.
And I was like, this may be the greatest stretch of television I've ever seen.
I know.
But
A lot of binge watching.
But it is cool that he's so involved. I mean, he's big into the games. He was, he puts a lot of care into it. And
Yeah.
with the Superman stuff, he looks great as Superman, and I like him a lot. I feel like it's probably not his fault, I'm sure, but the Clark Kent stuff in Batman versus Superman and Justice League, it just seems kind of cold, and kind of off. Whereas, and it's hard not to compare him to Christopher Reeve, but you look at Christopher Reeve's Clark Kent, and he's kind of oafish and kind of goofy. He's kind of meek,
Yeah.
and it's a real different. It's a big difference in the tone. Plus, Henry Cavill's like jacked to the gills too, so it's like,
Right.
look at
I think we really could have used a second Superman movie in between the stuff. I think, we got his origin in Man of Steel, and I think we really could have used a direct sequel to that, like a Last Son of Krypton type of thing, where maybe he goes against Brainiac or something, to where we could have gotten more of that Clark, Lois, Metropolis, Daily Planet, Lex Luthor kind of introduction. Don't even get me started on Eisenberg as Lex Luthor. I don't want to talk about that, but
no, I thought when I saw the trailer, when they did for their first trailer, I was like, okay, all right, I'm cool with that.
He's a good actor. Maybe I can go with it, but all those choices were just like way off for me.
Yeah, I don't know what they were going for there. I thought maybe, okay, he's like a younger, like genius kind of guy, but a little bit out there, okay,
Right.
I can see that. Because I had read when they were doing Batman and Superman that Bradley Cooper had been mentioned about playing Lex Luthor, and I was like, oh, it'd be kind of cool. Like, this is like rich, smart dickhead that just, but instead we got, what we got, which was not very good.
There's already so many like crazy, like the Joker already has crazy. Like there's so many like eccentric DC villains that the cold, calculating, he's 2 moves ahead of you, rich guy Lex Luthor is what that character needs to be. So when you throw in these different kind of weird idiosyncrasies, it just kind of, it's a different character. It's not Lex Luthor to me.
Yeah, I agree. Well, we'll probably wrap it up here in a couple minutes. We could probably do this all night, I'm sure, but we got other responsibilities, unfortunately, like kids and jobs and stuff. But what do you guys have on your plate next? I know you're doing Falcon Winter Soldier. You got anything else going on?
That's what we're doing right now every Friday night, 10 p.m. on YouTube, Twitch, and Twitter. We prefer to direct people to YouTube if they can, try to grow that channel over there. But yeah, we do the after show, the Falcon and Winter Soldier. We're 2 episodes into that. There's 4 episodes left. We're going to continue doing the after show stuff. I know they're going to be having the Star Wars The Bad Batch. They just released a trailer for that today. That's coming out May the 4th. And just kind of our show in general, kind of our vodcast is DADNAROK High Voltage, where we just get on there and talk about whatever. And then
essentially what we're doing here with you today. That's what we're trying to do. We're trying to get other people to join us.
Yeah, so that's plenty. That's about what we're doing, and you can check us out at dadnarok.com for pretty much anything and everything DADNAROK.
Cool. Well, I thank you guys, man. Like I said, I've been a big fan of you for a long time, and I've been looking forward to hanging out with you, and hope we can do this again sometime down the road.
Yeah, man, a lot of fun. Anytime.
This was great. Thank you.
All right, appreciate it, guys. Take care.
Thanks, Rob.
All right,
have a good one.
Bye.